Hello and welcome back to The Drag Detective, where today we are going to be talking about the most definitive moment of each season of regular US Drag Race, voted by you. Couple things. One, yes, I know I have a massive zit. No, we're not going to talk about it. Also, today is like blowing my mind because here in Cleveland, it is like 65 degrees, cloudy, windy. The smell of fall is in the air. And as you all know, I hate summer and I love fall and winter so much. So I'm like about to decorate my entire apartment for Halloween. And I want to like make this spooky. Like I want to have like a spooky backdrop for fall. So that might happen in the next couple of weeks because honestly, it's time. I'm over the heat. I'm over the sweating. I'm over the sunshine. It makes me sick. I'm ready for Beetlejuice. I'm ready for horror movies nonstop. I'm ready for the leaves to change and for the temperature to not reach above 65 degrees. It is like, it's almost my time to shine. And this is just like a little precursor. So my soul feels very like at peace today. It makes me want to go spend a bunch of money on Halloween decorations and stuff. And speaking of spending money, let's get into today's sponsor, Rocket Money. This has been the summer of all of my friends getting married, which means wedding presents, bachelorette parties, flights to the wedding. It's a lot, and I needed to make sure that my expenses were in order so that I could afford all of that on top of my regular bills and things that I need to buy. Luckily, today's sponsor, Rocket Money, was here to help. Rocket Money is the personal finance app that will help you lower your bills, cancel your subscriptions, and just generally help you manage your money much better. I've actually used Rocket Money for over a year now, and I've loved it so much. It makes it so easy to break down all the things you're spending your money on, figuring out which subscriptions you want to keep, which ones you want to get rid of, and to help me get $20 off my monthly bill for my Wi-Fi/internet. So it has been such an immense help for me as someone who is not good at money. I'm actually terrible at money. So having something like Rocket Money that helps me keep myself accountable and know where my spending is going, it's literally ideal for me. If you want to save more and spend less, then join over 5 million people who are already using Rocket Money today. Go to rocketmoney.com/detective or click the link in my description below to get started for free. And thank you again so much to Rocket Money for sponsoring today's video. The vibes continue today because I am wearing my Psylocke/Captain Britain Cerebro shirt. Everything is perfect in the world. Everything is perfect in the world. So, Drag Race, that's what this is all about. So, I put out a Google form for you all to take, and over 1,300 of you took it, so thank you so much. We love having a big pool of data to show. And in that Google form, there were some moments from each season, and you got to choose what you think the most definitive one of that season was. So we're going to talk about that data, talk about the most definitive moments, if I agree, and just have some fun reminiscing down memory lane of Drag Race US seasons 1 through 16. So if you see me looking off to the side, it's because I have my laptop set up with all of the data. Let's dive right in to season 1. Now, we had 4 options for season 1 for you to vote for. These are the 4 options. We have Angina's HIV announcement. We have the Angina versus BB lip sync to Stronger. We have Chanel choosing herself to go home, and BB winning the very first crown. Now, it's season 1. Obviously, everything's going to feel new. It's all going to feel like the first because it is. But these, I think, are some pretty iconic moments from this season. And unlike in other seasons, this one is more split. But the winner of season 1's most definitive moment is Angina's HIV announcement. So yeah, as you can see, it's pretty split. There's not like one that's like 1000% the winner and everything else is like a flop, which we will see in other seasons. But I think that because this season is the first one, all these moments feel big. They all feel so important because they really did set the groundwork for what the show would be in the future. I do agree that I think Angina's HIV announcement showed what this show could be. I think that season 1 was really about like the drama and the cattiness and less about the drag. It was really trying to be like one of those shows it was low-key parodying. It didn't have its own voice yet. And I feel like this moment with Angina showed what the voice of the show would soon become, which was queer voices talking about queer issues from their perspective, educating audiences on things maybe they don't have a bunch of knowledge about, and really just being a safe space for anybody who wants to express themselves and be who they are. And Angina taking this huge step, this huge leap, because this is 2009. Like, there was still so much stigma around HIV/AIDS, and there still is so much stigma around HIV/AIDS. If you go on any dating app, you see it firsthand. So the fact that the show went so bold as to show this moment on its first season, this was, I think, a big stepping stone for what we will see later in the show, where people are just willing to talk about, their hardships and things that they go through and things that are difficult for the queer community and for people in the drag community. And I think this show really is, at the end of the day, winning Emmys because it is educating the masses on things that probably they don't understand very well, or they think they understand well, but truly, know nothing about. And Angina being able to say, I'm living a healthy, happy, queer life as an HIV positive person was a huge moment for the show and for queer television history. So I think it makes complete sense that this would be the moment that defines season 1 of Drag Race. Now, season 2, our options were Tati and Pandora slaying the very first Snatch game, the Tyra is a complete bitch moment on the main stage, Jujubee's Black Velvet lip sync, and Raven versus Tatiana at the reunion. Now, I know there's going to be, I know, I already got messages about it. Yes, I just chose 4 moments from the season, and I'm sure that there's something that you think could have made this list. If you want to comment it, go for it. It rises my engagement, but it's too late to change it now. This is what's up here, and this is what people chose from. Now, unlike season 1, this one was pretty unanimous. I don't want to say unanimous, but 50% of people chose the Tyra is a complete bitch moment on the main stage. I think season 2 is known for its drama. I feel like season 2 and season 3 are the 2 most dramatic seasons of the show, but I would actually give the edge to season 2 because it just felt like every single moment of this show was filled with people who hate each other, and there's contempt and there's jealousy and there's all these things, there's rivalries, and we really don't see that happen much on the main stage. But it happened in this episode, and we see everybody in the line basically saying, Tyra sucks, why do you like her so much? And it was just something that, you weren't not expecting, because usually there's such a, gloss over the queens when they're in front of the judges. There was no gloss here. They were being fully real, and it was really just an iconic moment that we really haven't seen on the show again. I guess in some moments of, who should go home tonight and why, we see a little bit of this. I think with the Vixen calling out Eureka is probably the closest, but no one jumped to Vixen's side and we're all agreeing with her, like on season 2, like in this moment. This was truly the entire cast being fed up with Tyra and telling the judges, hey, we don't like this bitch. So I think because of that, it is a super, super memorable moment. And while I think that the first Snatch game could have been, a defining moment, this really wraps up the season in one moment of the drama, the intensity, and, Tyra being at the helm of all of it. So I think this was a good choice for the definitive moment of season 2. Another one that, there's, I guess, 2 options that were in the running, but it was really just one that people really gravitated towards is for season 3. And the options were Shangela versus Mimi's Sugar Daddy fight, Drag is not a contact sport, where Mimi on First lifted up India Farah during the lip sync, Manila's MacArthur Park lip sync, and the Heathers versus Boogers fight at the reunion. Now, the winner of this with almost 60% was the Shangela versus Mimi fight. It was so intense that they literally didn't even show it all. It shut down production. This was a very intense moment for the show, and I think is known as one of the most iconic moments ever and one of the most iconic fights ever. And season 3 is I don't know, I think a lot of people like season 3 who were there in the moment. I think maybe it would have hit better if I watched it in the moment, but watching it I think I watched it in 2019, 18, it just didn't hit as hard, and it's never been one of my favorite seasons. So this really does stick out as one of the biggest moments of the season. It makes sense to me why this would be picked, and even over a decade later, we're still quoting this all the time, so it makes sense to me that this would be the moment from season 3. Season 4, we also have kind of 2 moments that are getting a lot of the votes, and the other 2 moments didn't really get much. The nominees for this season were Jiggly versus LaShawn Beyonds. This isn't RuPaul's best friends race fight. The Sharon versus Jeremy tired ass showgirl fight. Willem's disqualification, and Latrice's natural woman lip sync. As we're seeing with these early seasons, the dramatic moments are really the ones that, tend to stick out in people's minds the most. And that is the same here because the winner is Sharon and Fifi's tired ass showgirl, go back to Party City fight. Even though now you kind of watch this season completely differently than you did back then, even when I first watched this season in like 2018, you're watching it with a completely different lens because Sharon Needles is, has been exposed for so much shitty behavior. But also, like, people already kind of knew about that behavior in 2018. They just didn't care. I guess they didn't know all of the details, but, like, they been knew that she was saying the N-word. They been knew that she was, like, saying racist jokes left and right. They just didn't care until the grooming came out, and then that was when it all just kind of, like, spiraled for Sharon Needles. But, I mean, Sharon was, in this season, propped up as the hero, and Jeremy was the villain, and so seeing them go head-to-head like this, it was an intense moment. There's so many quotable moments from it. It makes sense that this would be the moment of the season, because as much as, like, Willem's disqualification was, like, a crazy moment we've never seen before, the main storyline of this season was Sharon versus Jeremy. And so I think that a moment from them does deserve to be the most definitive of this season. Season 5 has so many options for like what this could be, but the nominees that I chose are Honey and Vivian's double elimination, Coco versus Alyssa's I'm Not Joking Bitch fight, Coco versus Alyssa's cold-hearted lip sync, and Jinx versus Detox's Malambo #1 lip sync. And just like the previous ones, there's really two that stick out. They both involve Coco and Alyssa, but the winner by a tiny, tiny margin, only 2%, is Coco and Alyssa's I'm Not Joking Bitch, look how orange you fucking look fight, which is just like, I mean, that gif of Coco like at Alyssa with just like the orange face is, I mean, it's been memed a million times. Another fight that is quoted all the time. And I do think, kind of like Sharon and Jeremy, one of the two main storylines of season 5 is Coco and Alyssa, the other being like Jinx underdog arc. So one of those two I think should have been the most definitive moment. And the fact that this fight was chosen, I fully agree with. I think this is, when you think about season 5, you think about Jinx and then Coco and Alyssa. And so this fight reigns supreme and makes sense to me why this would be the definitive moment of season 5. Season 6, First I'll tell you the nominees. The nominees were the two groups meeting for the first time, and, we get the iconic "Well, I Don't Cough Like a Man" from Gia Gunn. We have Adore Bianca, Darian, Dayla, and Jocelyn slaying the Snatch Game. Darian versus Dayla's Point of No Return lip sync. And the entire Laganja fiasco. I feel very attacked. All of that episode. And that was not even close, with 67%. That's 2/3 of the vote went to this one thing. And I think that this makes sense. Again, all of these except for season 1 have been fights. But I mean, there were just so many iconic fights in early Drag Race that it makes sense that that is what we remember most. And that's what we define the seasons by, is like who was fighting. And in this season, it was Laganja versus everybody. It all comes to a head in the comedy challenge. And, from her iconic comedy performance to the fight in Untucked to the Stupid Girls lip sync, one of the greatest episodes of Drag Race ever. And we're getting closer to me covering the season on the riggery of, and I'm very excited because I'm not actually sure. I need to still rewatch it. I'm not sure this season is super rigged, but this season is just like perfect television, and I'm excited to dive into what made it perfect television. Okay, season 7, a season without a bunch of iconic moments, but there still were 4 nominees, and they were Violet's premiere reveal, the Shakespeare disaster, Trixie's shocking dreaming elimination, and Pearl's Is There Something on My Face. Now, there were 2 that were really close in the voting here, but the winner is Pearl's Is There Something on My Face. I would actually say, like, Shakespeare, for me, would have been that moment, only because it involves everyone, and it really just kind of... There was such a shift this season in just, like, the casting and the storylines and the production of the show, and I feel like that Shakespeare episode really kind of encapsulated everything that was different about this season versus other seasons. But I also do think that the Pearl moment with RuPaul was unprecedented, Everyone still talks about it. We have so much more backstory now, so there's so much like more to talk about still about it than when it first happened. Like, I think it makes sense that this is the definitive moment, but personally, I'd probably pick Shakespeare. And then season 8, another season with not a ton of like memorable standout moments. And it shows in the voting because all of these got votes. It wasn't like there was one standout, like where it was 68% or whatever. So let's talk about the nominees. We have Layla and Dax's double elimination. We have Bob and Thorgy slaying Ruko's empire. We have the iconic Dragometry performance. And we have Trixie calling out Acid Betty at the reunion. Now, the winning moment is Bob and Thorgy slaying Ruko's empire. I think Bob is really remembered for this episode because she wins it with one of the worst looks of the night and of the season and maybe ever. I think this defines the season because it truly is when Bob steps out from the shadows. Like, not the shadows, but she was just like, she was fine the first 2 episodes. And then this episode happens and you realize what a powerhouse Bob can be in these challenges. And it really also sets up the Bob versus Thorgy storyline, which I think is probably the main storyline of the season, or one of the main storylines of the season. So I think this really is when the season like starts its true narrative, where like Bob is dominating, no one can catch up, Thorgy's pissed about it, Thorgy's freaking out about it. I think it makes sense because this is kind of like the linchpin of the season when things really start to take shape of like what this season is going to be about. Okay, season 9, like Loki has a lot of moments. The ones that I chose were Black China Gate, because it's literally still in my comments every single fucking video. Valentina's Mask Gate, Sasha's Rose Petal lip sync, and Everyone versus Valentina at the reunion. I feel like any of these, like, for any other season, these like big enough moments where like they would make it, but for this, like, they're just all against each other, so it's hard. But there was one clear winner, which I was surprised about because low-key, I thought that like some of them would have gotten a little bit more, but Sasha Velour's Rose Petal reveal might be the best Drag Race moment of all time, so it makes sense that here it won. Season 10 is another season with tons of moments. The ones that I chose were Eureka versus Vixen, Go Have Your Cigarette Bitch Because It's Done fight. We have Monet versus Dusty's Pound the Alarm lip sync, Vixen storming out of the reunion, and Asia's Butterfly Gate. And this one was very close between 2, but the winner is Butterfly Gate. I mean, this is just like an insane, like, I feel like if you just like said this moment to a person who's never seen the show, they would not believe that this happened. Like, this is truly like, we shifted when those butterflies hit the floor. And I don't think anything as insane has happened on this show since. So honestly, this makes sense. I don't know. Like, I might have picked Monet or Dusty or even like the reunion, because I feel like the Vixen was kind of like one of the main characters of the season, whereas like Asia's Butterfly is just like a blip that happened at the finale. But I don't know, I think this is definitely the most memorable, so I think it makes sense that it'd also be the most definitive. Season 11, oh my gosh, these next 2 seasons have like a very clear winner. So the nominees for 11 were the Unhinged 6-way lip sync, Evie versus Silky and Vanjie's fight with the like, I tried to be cordial with you, Brooke versus Evie's Sorry Not Sorry lip sync, and Sugar Cane's insane Dragacadabra robbery. And with 82%, it is Evie versus Brooke, Sorry Not Sorry. This might be the greatest lip sync of all time, so it makes sense that this would be chosen, but like, damn, 82%? I think it makes sense though, because like this was the 2 front runners of the competition who would later be the top 2 of the entire season. Going head to head halfway through the season, you think one of them's going home, and they both stay. Season 12 is another one with a very clear winner. The nominees were I'm That Bitch, Heidi and Aiden versus everybody. At the end of the day, it doesn't fucking matter. Fuck you, fuck you, and fuck you. Jan's face crack at the Rusical, and the COVID finale. And the winner is Jan's face crack. I low-key thought that the Heidi Aiden fight might like win, but like I do agree that Jan's face crack is the thing that people talked about for literally years. And whenever someone has like a moment, like a face crack moment, it always gets compared to this moment. So yeah, I would say that this one makes sense. But also, I'm That Bitch is low-key the most iconic challenge in Drag Race history. So I'm okay with this one. It makes sense. Season 13, we have the Pork Chop Lounge twist, which was reviled, obviously. We have Lala Ree's bag ball look, Candy versus Tamisha's fight, and Candy, wait, A lot of these obviously involve Katie Muse, because she was the main character of this season. But the winner of this was actually Lala Ree's bag ball look, which is, again, it's kind of like Asia's butterfly. It's just like a like, what happened? How did we get here? What am I watching? Kind of moment. And it's been talked about for so much and is known as, it's known as like the worst look of all time on Drag Race. So like, I get it. I probably would have done the Tamisha Candy fight only because like that like mattered more to the season, whereas like Lalaurie's bad look was just like a one little moment. But the Candy Tamisha thing was like a thing. So I probably would have gone with that, but I get why this was picked instead. Season 14, our nominees were Willow Pill's Bathtub Talent Show, the Lollapalooza episode, Bosco and Camden's fight during the Rusical, and Moulin Rouge. And usually a challenge hasn't really won, just like a challenge, these things yet. But the winner of this one is Moulin Rouge. And I think because it was that girl. Like, everyone did a good job. There was so much, just like the fight beforehand and the lip sync after, the chocolate bar. Like, this is just like a very iconic episode. And I think was kind of like the turning point of like the latter half of the season. So like, yeah, I think this makes sense to me. Especially in a season that a lot of people don't like, which I disagree. I love this season. This was like something that everyone collectively was like, this episode was a slay. Now we're in our most recent season, season 15, and the moments that I chose, which I guess could change like in a couple years. Like, we might like think of things differently or like think more fondly of things than other. But as of right now, I chose Anitra's talent show, Wig Loose, Lux's Who Should Go Home Tonight and Why speech, and Sasha Colby devouring the finale. Now, the winner of this was no surprise. It was Anitra's talent show. But I low-key would have picked like the Lux moment. I just feel like that like it was more definitive of the season, whereas like Anitra's was more just like an iconic moment. I feel like Lux's was more definitive of like, these were storylines that have been going on for a long time and we're finally coming to like a head. But I get that like Anitra's talent show was more iconic, so I get why that won. But I would probably pick Lux's moment instead. And lastly, we have season 16. The moments that I chose were Megami and Morphine slaying the Lollapalooza, the ASMR Lover girl group performance, Morphine versus Maya dim all the lights lip sync, and the Rada Queen twist from the premiere. Now, the winner is Morphine and Megami slaying the Lollapalooza. I think this makes sense, especially because it was like such a redemption for both of them. Like, Morphine hadn't won anything throughout the entire season. She was in the bottom a lot. Megami kind of came and went. People didn't really live for her at the time, but both of them had a huge redemption moment, and it was just a really, really good episode that involved a lot of the queens throughout the season. So I think this makes sense. I think that like if the Rada Queen twist like did more, it might have been like more iconic, but it wasn't. So this makes sense to me as the most iconic moment, the most defining moment of season 16. And that was the list. Should we do this for All Stars? I think we could definitely do this for All Stars, but let me know if that's what you would want to see. And let me know if you think some of these were the wrong choices and what you would pick instead. As always, I want to thank you all so much for watching, and thank you so much to Rocket Money for sponsoring today's video. The links to all of my social medias will be in the description down below, and I will catch you all in the next one.